Good afternoon. Another Saturday here with Our World, Our Power. I'm Lady Pauline and my co host, guest, beautiful, my partner, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard here in Queens.
Welcome.
I have today Randy Fling. He's a tech guru, a business writer, a co founder of Rolling Out. Welcome, Randy, to Our World, Our Power.
Well, thank you for having me today. It's a beautiful Saturday down here in Atlanta, and it's great to be on the show.
You just throwing that at me. I want to get on the plane and head down there right now. As I said, I was down there a few weeks ago and I had a ball. I really love Atlanta. Hopefully, things work out. I could relocate one day.
Sounds good. Hey, we'll be happy to have you.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell the audience about Randy Fling.
Yeah, well,
When did you get started in the media business?
sure. Well, Randy Fling is a Buffalo native who came to Georgia to go to Georgia Tech and get an education and some more sunshine than there was in Buffalo. Who decided to stay in Atlanta and be an entrepreneur and do some entrepreneurial ventures after school. I've been a stockbroker before. Um, so I've worked for other people, worked for DuPont. But the Olympics were coming to Atlanta in '96. And what happened is the CEO of Rolling Out, Munson Steed, was working on a contract for the Olympics with the city. And we actually were able, I helped him out with that. We actually got the contract, and I had to make a decision about my business that I had at that time. But, I was like everybody else. We had Olympic stars in our eyes. This was going to end it all.
Gonna be the big time. That's
It'd be
right.
the last job you ever had to work, right? And so what I did was close that down at that time, and we did a great project with the city of Atlanta during the Olympics. Very pleased with what we were able to accomplish. And then the Olympics were over. And, media, again, having been an entrepreneur previously, one of the things I had done was the printing business. Um,
Okay.
Back when the Macs first came out, I had one of the original Macs. And yes, I'm stupid. I don't have it today. It's probably worth a ton of money. But I used to do layout and design uh, on the original Mac. And so,
Oh, wow.
media and printing and the print world was something that kind of came, I had some interest in going further in. And, and we got together. We did a glossy magazine first for about a year and a half. It was on the newsstands. It was in Port Authority and all those Kroger, all those good places. And right around the time Oprah came out with her magazine, actually maybe a little before that. And we thought it was a good lifestyle magazine, but the economics of it were a little deeper than we realized to really get into the cycles that you had to and do what you need to do in that phase of media. But we knew that what we were offering people liked from a lifestyle perspective. So what we did was we prayed on it, we talked about it, and honestly, one day he said, "Come on in here, cuz I've got the answer." He said, "We're
Uh-oh.
going to do a newspaper."
Okay.
I'm looking at glossy magazines and what we know and what we think and people want. Our magazine was called Direct Wire. So the internet was becoming popular. So this was 1997. So it was called Direct Wire. And I can remember, it's just to give you an idea, one of the first articles we had in the first issue was, "Is the internet too cool for blacks?"
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
to be able to
Okay.
sit here and say this, that literally is where the space was at that time in
Time.
1997. And so anyway, we did the magazine for about a year and a half. Had great response, but the economics of it just were not going to work out without some strong capital financing. So he said, "Let's do a newspaper." So my mind immediately thought of black newspapers that I had previously seen, and I cringed. I said, "No, we can't do that." He says, "No, we're going to take the magazine and make it a newspaper." He said, "Should we be free since the internet's going to be free and people are starting to get information without paying?" And I said, because of course the magazine you charge for, so again, a different business model. And we
Right.
thought about that for a day or two and said, you know what, let's make it free. Let's go with the free model. We weren't aware of any black newspaper. There was the Village Voice and similar type alternative publications around the country that white people had, but at that time, we don't know that there was anybody. We had never seen a black paper, that was free and distributed that way. So we decided to do it, and here we are, 22 years later.
Wow. So it actually worked.
Actually worked. And of course, 10 years ago, suddenly it became, we got to do digital.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably a little longer than that ago now. But, so that's been a whole nother phase for us to be in the
What's the
digital.
transformation like? I know because even when I started out, I had a magazine,
Mhm.
physical magazine, and again, the finances of keeping it going was an issue.
Mhm.
Then of course we went digital. Um, but for somebody that's been in the business for a long time, how did you adjust to the fact that now it's digital as opposed to holding something in your hand?
And we actually still do print,
Oh, you do?
not at the level
Really?
we used to, but we still print, yes,
Okay.
on a weekly basis. Um, the difference is, but again, obviously we lead first with digital, and print is kind of the follow up. So obviously you can't put out new news in a weekly print newspaper.
Right.
So
No.
you're really leading with everything on digital, and then pulling from that to create, the weekly content on a weekly basis. The adjustment was tough. I can remember when we first got into it. We had constant debates, and we were actually a few. I wanted to get in sooner than we did, and Munson kept saying, "Well, we can't afford it right now. Until we can dedicate what we really need to it to do it right, we shouldn't do it. We don't want to do it half-ass."
Right.
And I wish we had done it half-ass because we didn't know it was going to take such a learning curve to really, it'd been better been doing half-ass and learning than to wait. But it is what it is. We waited. I can remember, when we were first talking about becoming digital, that meant taking the newspaper and putting in what either Issue or one of the click through it, literally like click on their screen and watch the pages flip. You simply were taking your print publication and putting it on the World Wide Web. People thought that was,
Straight digital. Yeah. So
and people thought
our
that
print-
was now somehow going to the web. And we could have done that early on, but we looked and we're like, that's not really what the web is.
Right.
That's not how people use it. We don't think that that's going to last. So we actually never even went through that phase. We said, no, we're going to have to do this whole web thing. The time, the energy, the resources, and the money, and do the internet thing versus trying to do our paper on the web. And it took some time. I can remember our first website. We had these developers from India and a guy that was in Atlanta who had his team over in India. And it was a lot. It was
Yeah.
really a
So,
lot of work and time.
Randy, so you went from the Olympics, then you went to a magazine,
Magazine.
Glossy magazine, and
Mhm.
then you went to
To
digital,
newspaper. To newspaper. We went to the
the
newspaper.
newspaper, and then to digital.
Right, exactly.
Wow. So tell, because I don't know that everybody that's listening even understands the difference and the implication from a business modeling standpoint.
Hmm.
So would explain, go through the different differences, because I
Sure.
think that that's important for people to understand where media has come from, where it is now, and then possibly where it's going to go in the future.
Go. Yes, it'll be some form of social is where it's going, but
Yeah.
but yeah, certainly a magazine. The dynamics of a magazine that's on the newsstand that people buy. And it's funny because when we had one there, I would go out to Kroger and I'd go to the magazine stand, of course, to make sure our new publication was there and what have you. And then I would watch people and they would see it and they'd go, wow. I mean, because we went to Puerto Rico, we had fashion, models down under the waterfall in Puerto Rico. I mean, we were high fashion, high gloss, luxury Rolex ads, those type of things. And people would look at it. So I'd watch them. They'd flip through it, but then they'd buy something that they were used to buying. So that was my first lesson, was that You could be interesting. You could have done a quality product, but it takes time in the marketplace before people will buy your brand. It's kind of like those infomercials that we all see. You see something on there, you're like, wow, that looks great. You know, and you may never buy it, or if you do, you've probably seen it like a lot of times before you actually make that final decision to buy it. And so that's what we found out, we were able to see in every possible way. Not that we weren't selling. The other thing we learned about media is ad agencies and large companies that you want as your advertisers, that everyone wants, as their advertisers, because so many businesses come and go, they're not, you can have a great product. They can say, wow, I really like that. I can remember them, a couple of them saying, excuse me, and in 3 to 5 years, we probably could do business because our clients, we don't do any business with new publications. So if you come back in 3 to 5 years, of course, how do you survive 3 to 5
5
years?
years, yeah.
When all you can get is some, nickel and dime advertising versus you've got a product that's deserving of national advertising. So
Right.
it's that's a huge challenge that people don't realize. They sometimes think if I could create something good, and I tell people in business, think about it in other businesses because it kind of works the same way. Maybe not exactly, but especially if you're trying to sell your product to large companies. That's one thing if you've got a consumer product. But when you're really doing a business to business sale, it's going to take you a long time. I'm an investor in a tech business, and it's been about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still alive. We're actually making some headway, but it's a B2B. Consumer to consumer, straight to consumer things can hit the level they need to a lot easier. But companies take a long time. So from that model, and back then you had to wait and see how many returns there were of the magazine because they don't pay you for those. The Krogers and the stores and we had got a national distributor. We thought, whew, that's it. We're distributed. The money is coming. And you wait months and months and months, and any returns that come in, the employees took it in the bathroom and read it and threw it away. They want to come back out the bathroom with it. You just paid to print it, but you never got paid for it. So it's a tough business model. I say to anybody, if you back then I can remember saying, if you don't have at least 5 million capital to last you those so many years, along with what you're actually making,
Mm-hmm.
not a good move. Newspaper economics, the reason we went free is we said, well, if advertising is what we're going to live off, let's not slow our circulation down, making people buy. We're going to go for free. Let's be free and let's get it everywhere we can, as fast as we can, because we know the advertisers want the numbers. And so if we can prove the numbers, we hopefully can do it. And the other blessing was because we were able to take national content, do it locally in Atlanta, 6 months later, go to Detroit. And then once you've done 2 cities, an advertiser will believe your plan for the next year. So you're able to say, in second quarter of next year, I'm going to DC and Baltimore. And I know you're buying from me now. I need to be in the budget for next year when I launch in DC and Baltimore.
In that area. Okay.
In that area. So we were able to be blessed. And, sometimes I always hate to say it, but, thank goodness for some cigarette brands and some others that were advertising back then that had no problem paying full price and only wanted the back cover and paid double for that compared to another page. But those were some of the things we leaned on at that time that, got us from city to city to have grown up.
How come that plan doesn't work today? I mean, because I know we're digital, everything is basically digital, but they always say that, physical newspaper and magazines is going out the business.
Been saying it for a long time. Yeah, they've been saying it for a long time. But if ask Cosmo and Vogue and some of them, if you've got certain products and certain things, I don't think it'll ever go away. Or certainly,
Not
let me not say
completely.
ever. I don't want to say ever, but
Yeah.
because it could. I mean, we're to the point now that people's glasses are showing them the news real time while they're walking down the street. They got cameras and they literally have that technology. So, at some point, people aren't going to say, "Why am I going to buy a magazine?" I'm going to tap twice here, and I'm watching it while I'm doing whatever else I'm doing uh, at home. I'm already reading that magazine. So I think the day will come, but
Mhm.
I think uh, the digital model is really based on numbers because the CPMS in terms of just the you asked about the business model.
Hmm.
Yes.
What you could get for every page of print advertising that people look at, you get maybe a nickel on the dollar, um, maybe a dime, maybe more like a nickel or a dime uh, per viewer on the internet. And it makes logical sense because a person reading a magazine or a newspaper, and it's funny how one more thing that really played into this change. When people used to get newspapers and magazines, they were waiting for it, they wanted it, and it was the
Yes.
source of their news. I will never forget, we were doing inserts for Kmart and every week. And I remember when they cut back in New York and they went to certain zip codes, but not others. And I'll never forget my drivers. They were like, "Hey, Randy, how come they not still doing it over here in the Bronx or whatever?" And I'm like, "Well, they gave us these other zip codes." He said, "Well, the people just keep asking me to bring some from over there because like they were waiting on their sale flyer."
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I mean? Their Kmart sale flyer.
Hmm.
And I mean, we did that. It's funny how you do things we did that plan with them for about 9, 10 months. And, they went a different route or probably were on their way out, so to speak. And, but it really worked. I mean, the people really were happy to receive what they were giving. And like, you used to flip through the paper to see the specials, Macy's. Where could you get tires on sale? I can remember doing that.
Mhm.
You wanted the newspaper for all that information, and now the difference is, so people would pay a lot for those ads because people were interested. On
Right.
the internet, I'm Googling how to, who's got the best IRA, and there's this ad popping up. You trying to sell me a new car.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you see that, what do you think? I know you're a guru as far as technology is concerned, but I mean, we're all around the same age,
Yes.
and sometimes I find it, really invasive
Oh,
of
very.
privacy.
Oh, very much so because they know that you already looked. They know that I looked at a car yesterday. Now today I'm trying to find out um, where to buy a computer, but they're showing me them cars, and they
Yeah.
know what model I looked at. And, there's a major, major, major change coming to that next year. They actually have the cookies that follow you. There is a major change. Everyone in the digital ad business is very concerned because they're not going to be able to track in the way that they have. So that, the feeling is that the advertising won't be as valuable, that publishers will get paid less because now your ads aren't being so targeted because people, instead of it being an automatic, people will kind of have to really opt in much more in a proactive way in order before they can be tracked on the internet. The European Union started some of that a couple years ago, but now it's coming to the U.S. too. So you will see less of that. Now they're trying to figure some ways around it,
Well,
but that is kind of the leading edge right now.
yeah, because one of the things that came up around that is that and it came up inside of the political context, which was if you're um, pro Biden or pro Trump, you will continue to get those articles that are in favor of what you've already looked at. So therefore, you never actually get opposition information. It kind of skews, and you and I, we can put in the same exact search.
Search. Mm-hmm.
However, we'll get a different result based on what we've looked at in the past. And so that is the implication you're talking about from an advertising standpoint is going to be affected because you're not going to be able to track what it was, as you said, that you looked at the car yesterday. Now I'm looking at a computer and the car advertisement pops up because it knows that you looked at it yesterday. So is that the kind of thing you're pointing
Yes,
to?
I'm saying it's going to be a problem doing that. The whole
Right.
technology behind it is being policed in such a way that won't happen as much and in the same way that it does now. I mean, they're trying
Well,
to find some way. The ad industry is trying to find some ways around it. And you're right. I mean, it's interesting, like you say that, because I go to a lot of different things, and I'm telling you, they are stuck on me. They think, we have two senatorial seats yet to
Yes,
fill here in Georgia.
absolutely.
So, John Ossoff is one.
Uh-huh.
He's a Democrat. Reverend Warnock is one. Kelly Loeffler is the Republican, and David Perdue is the Republican. But whoever it is who's against John Ossoff, which I believe is David Perdue, is who he's running against. They believe I need to see not David,
The,
uh, Ossoff as a communist every single day. So we have a video player on rolling out that we have ads, that we use a third party bringing ads in.
mm,
mhm.
I see that ad every day. It harkens, they even make it black and white so it looks like McCarthyism and communism. They say he took this money and he's a socialist. And I'm like, well, I'm actually kind of happy because I'm not really listening, but I know I'm still getting paid. I hope y'all paying top dollar. Keep
So
sending it to me.
basically, what
Keep
you're
sending it
saying
to
is
me.
they're programming your mind to think a certain way.
They're
yeah.
trying.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, because I've been to things that maybe, I go to a lot of things. There's a lot of ways what they might believe about me. Let me just put it like that. I'm the guy who goes to uh, rides by the Young Democrats events and walks in and just to see how many people they got. And then, the next week I ride by the Young Republicans and I go up in there and have a beer, see how many people they got. It has nothing to do with which I believe in.
Right, right.
Simply, it's good to know what things are really happening. Engineering, they taught us that. Class one data is what we call it. It's not what somebody else said. It's what you can observe and see for yourself and count. It has a number to it. So I tend to do that a lot. Maybe I'm a little anal,
No,
but
no, no, no. That's actually a smart business move because for example, if a guy over here in New York wants to buy a bodega, um, he squats at that bodega and counts how many people are going in for 3 or 4 days, a week, whatever his time period is, so that he has an understanding of how many people are actually going in there, so that he gets a sense of, well, what should he pay for that particular business. So it's a great business model, is what you're pointing to, because you're now looking at your target market. You're trying to find out what kind of pull they have and what potential. And then, of course, I would imagine, because you're looking for advertisers, you would then um, go to the ones that seem to have a big interest that people are following, and that would be interested in the subject matter that you have, the content that you have in your magazine and
because
newspaper.
Oh,
as we
that's
all said, we can make the book say anything. So, like you say, your guy squatting on the bodega, it's a perfect example.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Glenn, it's time to pay those bills.
Pay those bills, yes, indeed. So, just want to let you know, Black Spectrum Theater has the season pass, and for the month of November, they have November 27th. They have the holiday comedy concert, and then for December, and this is going to be on Fridays. December 4th, they have the Doo-Wop Love. December 11th, they have Two Trains Running.
Hmm.
December 18th, they have the 70s. And December 24th and 26th, they have Funkin' for Jamaica.
Mm,
Oh,
man.
yeah. Oh, it's a lineup. It's a lineup. And so what you need to do is you need to go to www.blackspectrum.net, select Season Pass 2020-2021, and then select your payment method. If you don't want to do it online, you want to call somebody up during the week, Monday through Friday. Call Black Spectrum at 718-723-1800 between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Back to you, Pauline.
Okay, well, you're listening to Our World, Our Power podcast. You can hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. And also continue to follow us on social media. Let's continue this conversation with Randy. Randy, tell
Yes.
me, if you was able to, what would you tell your younger self right now?
Wow. Um, hmm. Other than buy stock in Netflix 10 years ago, I used to be a broker, so those kinds of things are relevant to me.
Uh-huh.
And but I would certainly say that you know the most important thing in business is the relationships in business, and always, if you to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean you work for yourself. And always remember that, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to figure out how to multiply yourself, not do the work yourself. And just because you left a job and say, well, now I work for myself. Now you just gave yourself a different job. That's not entrepreneurship. Your goal should always be, what can I do so that I can leave something, and that I can leave people around me better than they were. And I've tried very, very hard. That has been a part of uh, what I've always tried to do. I thank my mama and my daddy,
Uh-huh.
because that's just always been a part of my life and my belief system. That as you pass through this world, and thank you, Jesus, that that to be in that way is good. I would say in business, um, you know, probably he could plan better than I did. Really, really think about 3 to 5 years, set us some definitive goals on a regular basis, your 3 year goals, your 5 year goals. Um, Life is going to happen. You can either decide, where the road is taking you, or just keep walking down the road. And I can look back and say there were times that, I was working so hard, I didn't always spend enough time planning so that I could choose in a definitive way where I might be at that particular time, or at a particular future time than I did. And the other thing I literally believe in, I believe strongly that young people don't get, that I would suggest, literally is investing. Americans have invested the stock market. I know because I was a stockbroker, that's part of why. But President Obama, thank goodness, created the Jobs Act so that small business now can raise $1 million a year. I don't want to say, from the public. You can advertise and talk about it. You don't have to only be able to get the investments from people who are worth what they call accredited investors, meaning a person who's worth over $1 million or has a $250,000 household income. Those are accredited investors. They've always been able to invest in new companies, put in X amount of money before the companies were public. Now, anybody can invest into startup companies, and these companies have platforms now that they're on. And I've invested in several black ones, small amounts. You can invest as little as $100, $1,000. I don't even think they allow you to invest more than $5,000 a year because you're not an accredited investor. They don't want you to, get
Spend all
swindled,
your money on it, right?
bet your money on these startups. And we all know startup companies obviously are more risky than established companies. But I think
Yes.
if there was something I could say, if I had known that it was coming, that I would say to every young person today is, now that it's here, and thank God for that administration putting it into effect. It's great for businesses, for small businesses. You do have to do some filings. You still have to file a little something with the SEC. You have to get your an accountant to prepare your reports. They have another accountant at the platform that reviews it as well. But it's not at the level of people on the exchanges. It's not an audited statement. It's what they call it. There's 3 levels of financials. You can have compiled, reviewed, and audited. So you can do this without being audited, which is very expensive, by simply being reviewed. So you still deal with accountants, you still file with the SEC, you still, have to stay on the up and up and report to your investors every quarter of what's going on with the company, where the money went, what's going on. But it's a way for small companies to get capital. And more importantly, to me, is that for every African American, it's an opportunity to, should you choose, to support a black business in a different way than you ever have before. And secondly, have something that may be really valuable for your kids that other people have had the opportunity to do since this country's been here. So
So, Randy,
Right.
you're pointing to crowdfunding and those kind of platforms
Correct.
that are now available for us as an investment tool.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Way past what Kickstarter used to be, where you get a T-shirt for, you get the first whatever, it's really is a whole nother level. And I, again, I've been blessed. I've been doing a Tech Tuesday show I do for 9 o'clock. I do a 15-minute segment on our morning show that we have from 8 to 10, the AM wake up call, and it's on all of our social platforms for rolling out, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so I have the opportunity to talk to young entrepreneurs, who are in the space, in the tech space, and I enjoy it a lot. And I know it's been a blessing for some of them, and several of them, I put a little money in. It's nothing that breaks the bank, but it's if a few more of us would just take $100, $200, and put it, we could see much more success of our Black-owned small technology startups. I mean, technology has kind of flattened things. We really have people who have the chance literally to be a Bill Gates. I mean, there are these black ladies are killing it. They're killing it out here. There's some brothers too, but they're dropping these new patents of their own. Patents are very expensive. This guy who I had on my show last week, he did 5 patents while he was at HP, but he's got 2 of his own now, and a third one already filed. But you give those to those companies. There's black people been creating things inside companies,
Forever.
just not
Forever.
getting paid. Now,
Forever.
because you can get your own technology going in a very different way, we have the opportunity to harness some things that have never before been available to us, and it's exciting to me. It's exciting.
Let, let,
I, go
let
ahead,
me
Glenn. Go ahead.
let me ask you this. Given the fact that you've been working in as a stockbroker and in the area of obviously finance and the money supply, how big an impact has that been on your business acumen, understanding business, under creating business models, going to different models as you go from print to digital? Um, give us an idea of the impact that financial background has had on your business decision making.
Great question. I feel like it has had a lot of impact. Even when I was at Georgia Tech and I was taking engineering, because I'm technically a systems and industrial and systems engineer, I took the extra classes that I took were in finance and banking. Because I've always had an interest in money. There's a reason. The first investment I made in the stock market, I was still in college. I started working, but I still had student loan coming. Hope I didn't break no laws. Hope they're not coming to get me 30 years later. But I took my student loan and I bought U.S. Air. U.S. Air had just become U.S. Air. For those of us in the Northeast, we might remember Agony Airlines, Allegheny Airlines.
Allegheny, yes.
Allegheny. We used to call them Agony up in Buffalo. Well, they restructured, got some new money, new capitalization, and changed their name and became U.S. Air. And they had just done it. And there was a guy I used to eat breakfast with. His uncle and dad had started a restaurant right there on campus. A white gentleman. And his dad had passed, so his mom and him, he never intended to do it, but he was taking classes at another school. And he had done a report on it because he was in finance. He and I used to just talk. He was a little older than me, but not, me maybe about 4 years older than me, but he was back in school. And we used to always kick it. And he had done it. I said, well, why don't you show it to me? And he brought it. And I took it home, read it, thought about it. And so, about a couple of weeks later, it was time to get that money. And I said, well, Randy, you're working. You can pay your bills with what you're working with. You're out here hustling. Why don't you take this loan money and buy some stuff? And I did. And I doubled my money. And I bought my first house with the money. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was $800 that I turned to $1,600. And I was in on one of those first-time home buyers programs, and that was like what I needed. And so by the time I was graduating, I was buying my first house. Wow. So, and I think some of that is obviously what led me to stockbroker. And the reason even then, I always said stocks was the way for Black people. When I came to Georgia and came across a lot of racism that I wasn't used to in Buffalo. Not that it wasn't there, I'm sure, and not that I hadn't seen some or dealt with some, but it just seems so much more prevalent in the 70s in Georgia in my face. You know, there was this strong understanding that guess what? Nobody knows who owns the stock. I'm like, if their stock goes up, my stock goes up the same amount. They can't do nothing about it. There's nothing anybody. So I've always had this thing about, you know, certain types of investments that even real estate, you know, people can redline you. They can come to the closing table and treat you different. They can, you know, not sell to you or sell, you know, because there's a personal in it. In the stock market, there's nothing personal. I buy that stock through my TD, you know, whoever account. I'm not doing an ad for nobody. But anyway, you know, it's the same as everybody else. So it's a great equalizer. And now
Randy, who inspired you when you was growing up? Because you're very well rounded and
thank you.
knowledgeable on different subjects.
You
Can
know,
you tell me who inspired you or some of the people?
God has been good. Let me start right there. But I will say that, you know, I'm going to take it all the way back. I'm going to literally go back to um, when I was in first grade. And I used to, I guess I was one of the teacher's pets somewhat. White teacher, lady. But I would, sounds, it's so old. You guys probably hope can relate. I'm sure a lot of people listening may not. But I used to take the milk cartons to the other rooms to the teachers. And there was a fourth grade teacher there. And if any one of his students was out when there was an empty desk, he would tell me to sit down. And up until, you know, until the second half of the day, I'd sit there and learn what the fourth graders were learning. And by the time the end of my first grade year came, there was me and one girl. We took, even though it's citywide final exams and things, we took the second grade exams. We both did above 95. And they skipped her a year later and put her a grade early. And they said, well, boys are not as mature as girls. But I was blessed that another year later, they did actually
good.
move me up a grade. And, you know, just realizing that you have the potential, just because I was in first grade, I was able to learn the things that the fourth graders were learning. I kind of realized, like, it's not always where you are doesn't mean you can't learn just as good as somebody else. It's not so much an age thing as it is, you know, what you're shown, and the things you're shown can allow you to you know, to do things that you may otherwise not realize you can do. The other thing I learned when I was in college, I worked at a alarm company. So the interesting thing, it was a small, relatively small private company. And his clients were all very, 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 very wealthy people. The wealthiest people in Atlanta, probably the wealthiest in Georgia in general. Their homes were up the street from the governor's mansion, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I'd go to these homes and the homes would be vacant. And they go, oh, yeah, they live on their houseboat for 6 months of the year in Florida with their staff of 7 or 8. And they just leave the house there with a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week. And, you know, so all of a sudden I understood that, wait a minute, there's some people living really different than me. They really got, there's another life that I'm missing. And, you know, that was very inspirational, honestly, to me, to really see up close that there was, you know, just ways to live that I didn't know anybody who lived those ways. So, you know, at least my perspective was, you know, my goal was never low. You know, I think that helped my goal to become high. I mean, I think I was blessed. You know, it's funny when you say who. You know, I think of so many people. I was in the NAACP when I was in high school. I became state secretary. Used to go to the conference up there in White Plains area that was one. And, you know, even around the state, I took the time to be involved in organizations, you know, where I could meet people, have an opportunity to meet the president, state president, let's say, of the organization, and those kind of things. So it was natural to me as I got older when I continued. When I came to Georgia, one of my best friends, I met him at the youth NAACP. I was 2 years older than him. And, you know, it's just funny that we talk. He lives in Birmingham now. We don't talk regular. But just recently, I couldn't believe him telling me this as a grown man, how much I inspired him. He said, "Oh man, I was still in high school. You were at Georgia Tech. You were in college. And he runs the chamber there and stuff. I mean, for him to tell me that I actually had an impact on him is just amazing. So,
How did you
um,
feel when you heard that?
man, how could I? I blushed. I'm a grown man. I blushed. I'm at home by myself, and I'm literally blushing because. But he's always been such a great friend, and he's become a very successful person, and you know, I'm one of those people who can wake up every day, and I feel blessed that I've been around a lot of people that I've been able to help, who have helped me, and I feel good about it. If I've got some enemies, I don't even know who they are. Now sometimes I'm too pleasing. I might be too pleasing. You said, what would I say to myself?
Uh
I
huh.
have probably, on occasion, probably on more than an occasion, been too pleasing, and I've even been told that not that long ago, like, make other people do their stuff. You enable people too much. You're gonna do their job and kill yourself. So maybe if that's my worst trait, I'm gonna have to live with it.
Tell me, Randy, how do you feel about the media today, um, with the information that is being put forth? Um, our president came up with fake news, and
Fake news and voter fraud.
exactly, exactly.
Neither of which really existed. Uh, as we all now know, there really wasn't any voter fraud. We knew it, we believed it anyway. But now that there's been these, I know here in Georgia, they've hand recounted. As of yesterday, they made the announcement that they are certifying it. The only thing left, Donald Trump has until Tuesday to say he still doesn't believe it. Then I think he gets to pay for it, and they'll do. He said, but they won't do. They're not required under Georgia law to do another hand recount, but they would rescan everything. But so yeah, I think fake news, and I do understand that news has changed in that there aren't as many people out getting news, because why go get the news when somebody else is going to report it and you'll have it in 5 minutes anyway? You didn't have to send anybody.
So it's so it's basically coming to you.
Coming to you. News is coming to you as a news organization, and it's coming to the people. It's like it's Twitter. I think the advent of Twitter, which of course was really before, not so much Facebook, because people didn't use Facebook for that. They were using that, showing pictures and the babies and a lot of things. But once Twitter came out, that changed the news immensely. Twitter became the news. People who really wanted up to the minute news, they were getting it from Twitter. And then, reading a little, and of course, Twitter was limited to so many characters. And then an hour or 2 hours later, they'd get a more in-depth version of it from a traditional media place, a CNN.com or something.
But what about the fact checking? What about the presenting something that was actually reputable, that was verified, that somebody had done the research to actually know that what they're saying is actually truth? I mean, that's what happened to that.
Yeah. Well, the money is what happened. We're in a capitalistic society, and unfortunately, it's a money. It's. I mean, it really is. It really, really is only a money thing. It's like, I think when TMZ reported Michael Jackson died, is how they really built their name. They became considered a news source after that, because they reported it before anybody else. Nobody else was able to quite verify it, but they put it out there as news, and nobody else would for some hours.
Right.
It was later on that night, into the night, because those other news organizations were doing exactly what you said. They were verifying. And what that did was allow a small blog to become a major company, because what people wanted was the news first. I mean, it's more than they wanted it.
Accurate.
In this case, it was accurate. I mean, I guess had it been a hoax,
then it would have went in a different direction,
That's
possibly.
News literally may have gone in a different direction. I mean, I really see that as a real turning point of what kind of became news. To me, that's one of the turning points. And so then it was like, oh, it can be fast and be right. And that's what people more so wanted. And I get the New York Times every morning in my inbox. I love reading long form stories that go in depth. I just don't believe that, people from 20 to 40 are as interested in reading long form stories that have been verified and have, research and depth of knowledge that you're able to gain, from it. And it doesn't mean they're not as smart as we are. They're probably smart. It's not even a question of, because some people tend to say a bunch of dummies. And I don't quite see it that way. They consume their news different, and they're gonna know about 100 things
Content
in the time that I don't know about. And it's just every generation things change.
change.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's
I
unfortunate though. A credible press is important to a democracy on
It
every
is.
level.
It is.
An unbiased press that has access to the information to give to the people is very important. And I mean, and again, social media has access because people are inside the White House tweeting. I mean, I guess in that regard, there are things that that get out quicker and better because of social media. So I guess that's the positive side of it, is that there's news we would, without, let's say, social media and the people who are active in it, there's a lot of news we never would have got.
True.
People were, it's be it because they recorded it on the cell phone, but they weren't a part of the media.
No, that's what I wanted to mention, Randy. I mean, years ago, you had to have all this access to what we're even doing right now. You had to be really on a radio station or a TV station. Things have changed drastically.
Right.
So I always was wondering too, where did our black media go as far as that? We had the Amsterdam News, we had Big Red. There were certain things that, black people went to certain sources to get their information.
Yeah.
Ebony Jet.
Jet, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've gone on really hard times. It's been difficult over there. And then, the most recent thing over there, which really is painful, that, there was some black folk who kind of held the notes and the investment side, and they came in and did some things. And it's really unfortunate over there. And the people who are running it have had to take them to court. It's just bad that it's come to that. But yeah, it has made it very difficult on black press. Let me just say, it has made it very difficult to distribute the news in the ways that we used to.
Yes.
We still distribute the news, but it's on our Twitter, it's
Yeah.
on our Facebook, and it's on our website. So I think that and what happened also in between was other people who understood the technology side and the website came along and created blogs that are now sharing the news that people like us or the Amsterdam News used to deliver.
True.
So it's not, and some are black owned, thank God. Actually, probably just as many or more, because it was some of whom have even been bought out. But at least, so I think it's not that black people aren't still getting a lot of their news from black people. I think it has. It's not Amsterdam News is still there, right?
Yeah, the Amsterdam News is still there. Yes,
You
it
kind of
is.
scared me a little bit when you said we used to get our news there. I thought so. I would hate that. I mean, they're an institution. I would truly hate for it to ever.
But you have to look for the newspaper on the newsstand.
You
It's
got to
it's
look
not
to find it. Yeah.
look to find it.
Every bodega or every corner store like it used to be.
No, none of us are. None of us are.
But before you answer this, we're gonna pay some bills. But I want to come back and I want to talk about where do you see things are going? Where do you see things are going for the next 5 years?
Yep.
Right now we've got Black Spectrum has a season pass that you don't want to miss. November 27th, they have the holiday comedy concert, and again, these are going to be on Fridays for the month November, December, and January. For December, we've got December 4th, we got the Doo-Wop Love. December 11th, we've got Two Trains Running. Great, great black-owned restaurant in the 60s, just having some fun. December 18th, the 70s, Spectrum's vintage promotional excerpts from all the great things that they did there. And then, as we said, December 24th and 26th. So we got a twofer on that one. Funkin' for Jamaica. So how do you get this season pass? You go to www.blackspectrum.net, select season pass 2020-2021, and you check out your payment method, so you can pay by different methods. Or if you prefer to do it, talk to a person, you can give Black Spectrum a call at 718-723-1800, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Back to you, Pauline.
You've been listening to Our World, Our Power podcast, and you can hear us again on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. Please do not forget to follow us on social media. And again, something new that we're doing, if you like what you hear and you like what you see, please send a donation to Our World Media. At Cash App. Okay, that's Our World Media. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, we need sponsors and we need continuing advertisement to keep the word going. Thank you very much. Let's continue our conversation.
So Randy, where since you've got and I actually, before I go there, I just want to acknowledge you in a couple things. One of the things that I love about your story is that you've integrated finance and your creativity, and I think that that's one of the areas as a Black entrepreneur that we don't have the relationship, the two-headed approach to it. A lot of times we're very creative and don't understand or know how to put the money and the financing together to back the particular uh, ways of making money, or the business models or the money models inside of that particular network. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, and also the other thing that you pointed to, which is very, very important, is relationship building. You're not an island, and so even as an entrepreneur, you want to create teams of people who are doing some of that work, so that you're not doing it all yourself, so that you can actually expand. And as the conversation goes, you're not in your business, you're expanding your business, so you can step
Right.
out and look at the terrain and see where it's going. And so that brings us to the next question: where do you see media, and especially Black media, going? What's its future?
Well, it's tough. I think one of the things I will say is it's kind of like Facebook. When we first started using Facebook, and everybody else did, we used to put a story on Facebook, and all of our followers would see it. Then all of a sudden, little by little, that's not the case. To the point that now I believe when you put your stories on Facebook, less than 10% of your followers see it. And they say that's because they had to keep everybody's feeds. If everybody thing that got published was on everybody's feeds, it would be too much. And so they pick the people that are most likely to respond to that type of particular story that you happen to be posting. And I'm like, well, what happens if they made, and of course they say, but you can just pay us and we'll show it to all of them. So, you can boost the post. And I'm like, well, wait a minute now. When I was getting all these followers, I thought they were my followers.
Right,
But
right,
one of
right.
the things that has haunted me for a long time is all of us that give this information to these people, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, What happens if they go away or when they change their business model? What does that mean for us? So, I don't know the answer, but it's something that I've discussed with some other people and thought hard about is where is the answer that is, cooperatively owned that will allow for socialness, which can include obviously the transfer of news, information, and personal things in a way that there's not one Mark Zuckerberg plus his shareholders. And of course, that's who he's obligated to. If there's a way to change things and make more money for them, he's financially obligated. That's the duty of a CEO is to make their company more profitable. But what I have thought about what will it take, who will it take, and how we could create a social network that allows news, as not just from us to the community, but from the community back as well. Um, that could be a platform to really do that. I think, and I think that'll happen. I think
Okay.
that there are enough smart minds, and I think if the right people um, can come together, I think we can create something that will last us, for the next 100 years,
Yeah.
So
200.
your point to interactive way of media, so that it's not a one way, one directional, a
Not one. It
multi-directional.
won't. It won't be. That can't be one directional. It won't be. Because if we're not relying on the people to bring us the news that we're then resharing with other people, we're going to be late getting it, or we're going to be relying upon other people. But from a black media perspective, I think, and I don't, I'm not saying that's going to happen in the next 3 years. I'm just saying something we should be planning for. We should be working on our own means of communication that's not relying upon how many Instagram followers I got, because Instagram can take my followers. I'd be a fool, I could put I could we lost our Twitter account. We had 60,000 followers. They said we had I don't know if somebody posted a music video. I mean, this was something nothing like deep, but they said, oh, y'all did it twice. Y'all infringed. And here we were spending all this time, effort, energy to get these followers,
To build it up.
to
Yeah.
build it up. Now, it turned out, with, once again, relationships, someone from a different community than ours that we knew and had dealt with for a long time. So a year or two went by without a Twitter. Who knew people at Twitter was able to make a phone call on our behalf. They emailed me twice, maybe asked a couple questions. How did we lose it? When? I dug up the information. And a few weeks later, 60,000 followers were ours again.
Wow.
That's how arbitrary that these things can happen. I
And
mean,
scary.
no, it is. And I mean, the guy who did it for us is just a friend at an agency, but he's at a big enough agency that they deal probably direct over there. And he knew, and they put us back on. It was
Back out.
always there. That's scary.
Randy, we're winding down. How can people reach you?
Well, I am at Randy Fling on on Instagram. I am Fling5 on Twitter, and I go to those a little bit, not as much as some people do, but certainly Randy at rollingout.com, 24/7. Randy at rollingout.com. And please go to rollingout.com. Check out what we have. We have, I'd be remiss not to at least quickly say we have a conference called Peace and Purpose, December 4th through December 6th. Please go to Peace and Purpose, or if you go to Rolling Out right at the top, you'll be able to click on it. It's all about meditation, self-care, self-help. It will have some financial education components as well, so people can, because when you're doing good financially and on a steady path there, of course, it makes it a little easier to be peaceful in some other ways. So, Peace and Purpose, but Randy at rollingout.com.
Thank you, Randy. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
having you on Our World, Our Power. Glenn, could you tell the audience how they can reach you and also talk about Thanksgiving
Oh,
in the
yes.
community?
Well, you can reach me at Sutphin Boulevard Business Improvement District. The number is 718-291-2110. And then, of course, this Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, from 12 to 3 p.m. at 90-67 Sutphin Boulevard, which is the old McDonald's that used to be there right off of Sutphin and Archer. we're giving out turkey, Thanksgiving turkey dinners to go. So we're gonna have them packaged up. We're gonna have some fried turkey, some rice, some sweet potatoes, some vegetables, and a bottle of water for anybody who wants a Thanksgiving dinner on Wednesday. So come on
Amen.
out, and we look forward to feeding the masses. We fed over 200 people last year. We're looking to go 350, 400 this year. So come on out, tell your friends, come out and grab a dinner so that you can enjoy your Thanksgiving um, peacefully and lovely.
Yes. Well, Randy, thank you. Have a blessed holiday.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
It was a
my
pleasure.
pleasure. My
Yeah.
pleasure.
And where can I
Glenn?
reach you, Lady Pauline?
Okay, you can reach me at psrworldmedia at gmail.com. You can reach me through at 917-355-70 or 646-340-7271. Follow us on social media at Instagram, and our podcast is also on YouTube, so you can follow us that way. I would like to say thank you to everybody for listening to Our World Media, and have you a blessed Thanksgiving, and catch you next week.